Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 36 of UAB Green and Told. Original air date Monday, January 4th, 2021. Through this podcast, we are able to share stories from members of the UAB community. I'm Greg Berry, Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. On this episode, we welcome Steve Foster, President and CEO of TherapySouth. As Steve will share, he started out working at a hospital, but he wanted more and wound up creating his own company.
That really scratched both of my itches, my itch to be a physical therapy and provide that medical care, but my itch to be in business.
And as he will explain, after establishing a successful company that wound up being sold, that itch returned. This time, he was a little older and a little wiser, but it still wasn't exactly easy.
Going home and telling my wife, it's a lot harder at the age I am now than it was back when I was young and dumb at 25 or 26 years old. So I did learn that.
And with his latest business model, Steve has been able to give back to UAB and his physical therapists.
One of the things I've enjoyed is being able to mentor young therapists to meet the goals that they have. And so what that's meant in many occasions is meant giving them an opportunity to open a clinic.
For 4 decades, Steve Foster has been a physical therapist. Ultimately, he would start and run 2 successful practices. That dedication takes hard work and a work ethic that was established at a very early age.
As soon as I could get the ability to have a work permit, I started working. So after school, I had jobs working as a janitor's assistant at a church. From there, I went on to better and greater things and worked at a women's shoe store stocking shoes, and I ended up getting downsized from that job and found a job actually for Southern Living magazine and worked in their offices just as a general flunky, just an office boy doing whatever needed to be done. And I did that for a good part of high school and all the way through college. And so it ended up being a great job for me, and kind of learned to work really in high school and on into college.
When you were starting the journey to try to figure out where you're going to go to college, what were your options and what were you looking for?
Well, I didn't have a lot of options because as a pastor's son, we didn't have a lot of resources. So I knew I had to live at home, at least for the first part of college, and go somewhere local, and settled on Samford University, quite honestly, because even though it's a private institution that's very expensive, as a pastor's son, I got half tuition off. We certainly weren't poor, but we were probably middle to lower middle class, I guess. I qualified for a federal grant. So my first year of college, I actually made money, and not many people can say that, especially if they went to Samford. But with my scholarship for being a pastor's son, with the federal grant, and being able to live at home, at the end of my freshman year, I had $600 in my account to apply to the next year. And so that was quite a feat, I think. I stayed at Samford for 2 additional years, got my prerequisites for physical therapy school, and then was fortunate enough to get accepted to UAB's program. After 3 years, I went to PT school, sort of back in the dark ages. Now you could get a degree, BS degree in physical therapy. But we pretty much did everything in those 2 years that gets accomplished in 3 years now. So it was quite an intense 2 years.
So at what point during the entire process in high school and then going to Samford did becoming a physical therapist come on the radar? Is it something that you always wanted to do?
I really didn't know what it was until after my second year of college, quite honestly. I had never had an injury that required physical therapy, and so I really discovered it, into my college experience. I knew I wanted to do something medical. I had ever since a child. I enjoyed, even as a young child, playing Army out in the woods with my friends. I always wanted to be the doc. I wanted to be the medic because I enjoyed patching people up. So it's kind of there, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And so medicine was something I thought about, but really didn't think that was the direction I wanted to go. So I looked at several things, from hospital administration to going into anesthesia, different things like that. And so I was kind of in the process of just searching through those things. I actually worked a summer at a conference center up in North Carolina. And as a part of that, I had the opportunity to do some community work through a children's rehabilitation center. And it was through that experience that I discovered physical therapy. And after spending a few weeks doing volunteer work there, I thought, I think this is it. I think this is what I'm interested in doing. And made a friend at the time who was also on staff at that conference center who was going into physical therapy and encouraged me to pursue it. So when I came back to Birmingham and back to Sanford, I had a contact at one of the local hospitals who helped me get a job in their physical therapy department. And so things just progressed from there. It seemed to be up my alley. It seemed to combine the things I was interested in doing related to being able to provide medical care, but also in an environment that allowed me to really get to know my patients. And that's proven to be true because even today, in physical therapy, we see patients 2 to 3 times a week. They come to see us on average 3 to 4 weeks for their care. And so we really get to know patients beyond just their physical needs. We get to know what's going on with them as a whole person. They really share their lives with us. Sometimes it's more information than you may want to know, but we have an opportunity to reach out to them and help meet not just their physical needs, but their mental, spiritual needs, and be able to encourage them in many ways. And so I think that's the thing that attracted me to the profession, was that opportunity to really get to invest in patients and have an ability to get to know them on a deep level.
When you started getting into physical therapy, did you ever imagine that it would encompass all of those different things?
Well, I knew from my experience working in the hospital, even as a technician, that it gave me a chance to spend a good bit of time with patients, because just the nature of what we do requires, even in a hospital setting, 30 minutes of time that you're with a patient one-on-one. In most other professions, that's just not the case, because as a physician or a nurse, you're kind of in and out with patients, spending a few minutes here or there. And so I really enjoyed that part. Again, even as a technician, I got to know the patients and spend quality time with them. And that was certainly a big part of what attracted me to the profession.
Currently, UAB has one of the top PT programs around. What was the program like when you were going to school in Birmingham at UAB back in the late 70s through 80?
Yeah, very much the same. And I don't think my appreciation for it was as great while I was there as toward the end of my time there, as I began to hear stories from PTs on a national level about the quality of the program at UAB and the quality of the staff, faculty at UAB. Marilyn Gossman, who was the program chair while I was there, I would say was one of the 10 most respected physical therapists in the country, at least by the Physical Therapy Association standards. She was very involved, obviously academically, but she was very involved, big picture, in helping to develop the practice, grow the practice, and gain respect for the practice on a national level, both in the association and through governmental involvement, governmental activities. So she was, I guess, the icon of the program, but she had done a wonderful job at UAB of developing the program, developing the respect of the program on a national level. And I really think the reputation that it had while I was there and the reputation that it has today was based on the foundation that Marilyn established there when she helped develop that program.
When it comes to your time at UAB, what do you think you learned most for the entire profession?
Well, as a student, it was true then, and I'm sure it's true today, that beyond just learning the academics of the building blocks of what you have to know to be a physical therapist, was learning time management skills, which certainly are valuable today. The program is very demanding today and was just as demanding then. Again, I think I mentioned earlier that back in the time that I went, it was a 2-year program. Today it is 3 years, which it needs to be, but there just was not much excess time in a day. So you really had to learn time management. So that was one thing. Yeah, you learned to be a professional, and you learned what it looked like to enter the medical arena and put on your professional hat and take seriously the profession that you have been called to do. And in doing that, again, meeting the needs of the patients that you encounter. So I think that those things were important to learn then and still are important now. We know when we have patients come into our clinics that they come in anxious about whatever's going on with them physically. They're anxious about what that's going to look like for them, not only just their physical problem, but how that's affecting their work, how it's affecting the things that they want to do from the standpoint of recreation, how it's affecting how they're interacting with their family. And so it has for them so many points of concern that they almost all come in very anxious about what this is going to look like. And so we have that opportunity to, first of all, reassure them that it's going to be fine, that we've seen this before, and tell them examples of how patients who've been through the same thing have come out on the other end, being able to return to work, return to their sport, return to their family activities without any limitations. And so it gives us that opportunity to set the table for them right off the bat that this is going to be better, that they are going to be able to return to life as they know it. And then to see that happen, and it doesn't happen in physical therapy overnight, and so we have to prepare them for that. But it happens over a course of an average of 4 to 6 weeks. It happens gradually. It happens more quickly if they're consistent with the program that we give them to do, not only in our clinic, but things that we give them to do at home. And it's rewarding to see them graduate and meet their goals and be able to get back to those things that they so want to do. And so for them, it's gratifying. They're excited to get back to life as they've known it in the past. And for us, it's gratifying to help them achieve those goals.
When you graduated in 1980, what was your plan? What did you want to do at that point?
Well, I just wanted to be a physical therapist. And so my first job out of school was working at Caraway Hospital, which is closed as well. It was a great institution. It was a learning institution, much like UAB is a teaching hospital. And so I got an opportunity to get exposed to, every discipline within medicine. So obviously orthopedics, we were a trauma center, so I saw a lot of trauma. I was interested in cardiac care, so I got to participate on the cardiac rehab team, burns, open wounds, things like that. So it was a great place to learn. In the process of learning those things, though, in that first few years, I knew that I wanted to kind of do more, and wasn't sure what that meant. But what I learned that it meant was I wanted to provide physical therapy. I wanted that to be my profession, and I enjoyed that very much. But I also realized that I really had a real interest in business, and I wanted to combine my interest in physical therapy with my interest in business. And so what it led to after 5 years of practice was with a partner starting my own practice, a private practice, back in 1985. And we opened a small outpatient clinic, actually right behind the UAB campus on 10th Avenue South, and put up a shingle and went to work marketing and do all the things you do in the business in order to gain patients. And over time, began to grow that business by adding clinics and doing some hospital contracts and things like that. And that really scratched both of my itches, my itch to be a physical therapy and provide that medical care, but my itch to be in business. And so 40 years later of being a physical therapist, I still have had those itches and have had the opportunity to scratch them for that period of time. So I'm really been blessed to be in this profession. It matches my gifts well and my interests well. And it, quite honestly, has just been fun. And I still am a lucky person. I get up in the mornings and enjoy coming to work. And I don't have any interest in the near term in retiring. A lot of my friends are beginning to retire, and to some degree it seems a little bit interesting, but then not really. And so I don't know what that looks like or when that might happen, but I have thoroughly enjoyed my work.
So when you went into private therapy, the mid 80s, late 80s with your partner, how ready were you to take on that entire environment? Because at this point, you're starting a business. Yeah, you have the PT background, but this is a whole new atmosphere.
Well, like some things, I guess you're young and dumb and you just figure things out, quite honestly. So, but my partner that I partnered with, he was my supervisor at Caraway. So he had about 10 years of experience, more than I did. And so he kind of brought to the table a little bit more, I guess, than I did. But he had never been in private practice either. You know, we learned the value of getting the right accountant, the right attorney, and the right banker to support you. And you just figure things out. And so we certainly made mistakes over time, but we learned pretty quickly and learned how to, write payroll and deduct, taxes and FICA and all those things. And started like most small businesses. I mean, I wrote out the payroll. Started first payroll was 3 checks, one for me, one for the partner, and one for the office manager we had hired. But I wrote payroll and factored in taxes and all that for several years until we could afford to, hire somebody to do that. So like most small business, you do everything. You're cleaning toilets at night after the patients leave and sweeping the floors and then going and writing payroll, but loving every minute of it because it's just what you want to do and feel called to do. And so it's really, even though it's work and it's hard, you end every day satisfied because you're doing, the thing you've been called to do, and you're satisfied at seeing your hard work pay off.
How well did that operation grow, and how long were you a part of it?
We had that practice for 9 years. It was called TherapySouth. After those 9 years, we had 10 outpatient clinics. We were doing some home health care contracts for several home health agencies, and had, I believe at the time, we had one hospital contract. So at the end of that time, we, again, I mentioned that my partner in this business was 10 years older. We started thinking, this thing is growing. How are we going to get out of it? Which is a common issue for a lot of businesses. You start a business, you grow a business, and then what are your options one day to get out of it when you decide you might want to retire? And so we started talking about that. And because he was 10 years older, I didn't think I wanted to be in a position when he got ready to retire to fully buy him out for what the cost would be to do that. And then 10 years later, try to figure out what I was going to do. So we thought we might have to just look at an opportunity to sell the company to get our equity out of it. And so that was kind of our solution. And so we thought, well, if we find the right partner, we won't get in a hurry, but when we find the right partner, we'll entertain an opportunity to sell the practice. So not long after that, we did get introduced to a national company that we felt like shared our values. It had hired a lot of physical therapists and had a lot of physical therapists in their upper management. The vice president of the company was a physical therapist. And long story short, we came to terms with them and sold that company, and really thought that we would both be there until we retired. And to make a long story short, after a number of years with that company, I felt like that some of the values of that company were changing, and felt like it might be time to move on and do something different. So we were with them for 8 years, and I made the decision to resign from that company and start all over. And so I did that after that 8 years and started my practice that we have today called TherapySouth. And just went, again, back to small business, had one clinic. I was back to writing the payroll. I was back to cleaning the toilets at night after treating patients. And just trying to keep the doors open. And it went well, and we've now grown to 35 locations. And like I said before, it's been fun. So it was a good decision for me to start all over, to do this again. And I've never looked back or regretted that at all.
14 years ago, you start from scratch again. What did you learn from setting up that first practice that paid off and paid dividends when you set up TherapySouth 14 years ago?
Well, of course, been there, done that, so you kind of replicate and learn from the mistakes you made the first time. So from that sense, it was easier. The difference, I think, was I was much older the second time, and I can remember at night, again, after starting early, treating patients all day and cleaning up the clinic at the end of the day and taking care of paying bills and all that, going home and telling my wife, it's a lot harder at the age I am now than it was back when I was young and dumb at 25 or 26 years old. So I did learn that if you're starting a business, it's always great to invest early while you're young, just from an energy standpoint. But the experience that I had gained through all the years of practice certainly helped me in being able to get off the ground, and then relationships too, because by then I had many relationships with physicians and other referral sources that supported us from the day one, and I had therapists who had worked with me in the previous practice have an interest in coming and being a part of what I was doing. So we actually opened 6 clinics in the first 6 months of operations of the practice, but we're only able to do that because we were able to bring in therapists who are already working in different communities around Birmingham and bring their connections to the practice, and so it allowed us to get off to a pretty quick start.
TherapySouth has grown quite well. You mentioned 6 in the first 6 months practices. You're up to 35 now. Here we are 14 years later. So you're averaging more than 2 a year. Is that kind of what you wanted to do when you established the company?
When I started the company, my goal for the company was to be about a 10 or 12 clinic practice. That's what I thought it would look like long term. And quite honestly, that would have been enough, I guess for me. That's enough. I started to say headaches. That's probably not the right word, but that's enough work for anybody to have, 10 or 12 locations of any business. But kind of what happened, is it just kind of happened, quite honestly. But what I found out over time was, we'd grow a clinic, we'd bring in really good therapists, and they would have goals just like I did. And for some of them, they wanted to be a clinic manager. For some of them, they wanted to move to a different city and kind of start something on their own. In order to give them those opportunities, it meant growth. So we could have just stayed at 10 or 12 clinics, and again, that would have been fine and enough for me. But in the process of that, I would lose the opportunity of working with some great people and some great therapists. So one of the things I've enjoyed is being able to mentor young therapists to meet the goals that they have. And so what that's meant in many occasions is meant giving them an opportunity to open a clinic, be a clinic director of that clinic, and do it in a place that they want to do that. And the way that I have structured the company is after a therapist has worked in the practice for a period of time, proved themselves, and been successful in their clinic, then they're offered an opportunity to have ownership in that clinic. And that has really served the practice well and helped us to be very stable, because in giving people ownership in their clinic, the one that they're working in, and have helped establish, it gives them skin in the game, so to speak. And so we keep good people because they've been given a good opportunity. They've been given the opportunity to have ownership and to grow a clinic, and in doing that, give themselves and their families more opportunities financially as well.
So you have 35 practices. You're still having fun. A lot of the friends that you've known throughout the business are retiring. Where does TherapySouth go in the future? And where does Steve Foster go?
Where Steve Foster goes and when, we don't know quite yet. But I've kind of promised myself I won't stay here and be irrelevant. That I certainly intend to be gone before being irrelevant becomes a word that is used to describe me. So there's that. TherapySouth will just continue. We have had some level of success, and I get emails or phone calls literally every day from acquisition companies showing interest in our practice and wanting to meet for coffee or go to lunch and talk about what they could bring to the table, either to help us grow but at the bottom line, they want to do an acquisition. I'm committed, and we're committed to not doing that. The intent is to stay private, and so we have a plan, and it's on paper, and it's all official to turn the practice over to the other therapists in the practice. So we have 5 original partners who are all younger than me, who serve as a board for the practice. And then we have 12 other junior partners who have ownership in their particular clinics. And so we have a plan in place that when I retire, they will just simply buy me out. And I guess I'll go to the beach and travel a little bit, and hopefully one day have grandkids, go visit and do all those things that people in retirement seem to do and enjoy. But the practice, my intent when I started this practice this time was not to be in a position again of having to sell it to a national organization in order to be able to get the equity that I have in it. And so that's our plan, is to stay private, just continue to grow it and give young therapists opportunities to progress in the practice.
You find it important to hire UAB and give back to UAB. Basically, you're hiring graduates. Why is that so important for you as well as the TherapySouth practice?
Well, I guess the first thing is because of what UAB has done for me. You know, they gave me the opportunity. I wasn't the smartest student coming out of undergrad to PT school. I was a hard worker, and my hard work saw me through PT school. I'll never forget, I mentioned Marilyn Gossman, who started the program at UAB and was such an icon in the profession. And at the end of every year, I think she sent every student a handwritten note just of encouragement. And I'll never forget my note that I got from her at the end of my first year. She said, "Steve, you got off to a really rough and rocky start, but you pulled it together and you've made it through. You're going to make it." And and she was right. You know, I again was not the best student. My transcript kind of looked like the typewriter in the day, got stuck on B. I mean, I was just a B student. And PT school back then was very competitive, just like it is now. And so the GPA of, I'm sure, most of my classmates and was much higher than mine. But again, I did have the hard work ethic, and so I made it through. And so I don't minimize that, again, just that opportunity that they saw in me to give me that chance. And PT school, again, back in those days was just as competitive as it is today. And I see many students who are much smarter than me and I would say sharper than me struggle, 2 or 3 times trying to get in school before they finally get accepted. And I think back on how just fortunate I was and am today that UAB gave me that opportunity. So anything that I've accomplished in business or in this profession starts with that. It starts with the opportunity I was given at UAB. So I will not ever forget that. And so I want to invest back in UAB and support UAB in any way that I can.
In the 40 years you have been part of physical therapy as the profession, what has changed? Obviously, technology has changed, but what else have you seen kind of ebb and flow change over 4 decades?
From the standpoint of patient care, what has changed, I would say, is the tools that we have to treat patients and the ability that therapists have now that, quite honestly, are just much better skills. And when I came out of PT school, we were certainly trained well and provided excellent care, but the training that is given to students today at UAB and in the profession as a whole is a much different level, a deeper level of care than possibly what I had coming out of school. And so that translates into patient care that is much more advanced, and it's advanced skills just with manual treatments that are provided today that just weren't commonplace back in my early days of practice. It's evolved into technologies that are much more advanced, but also just the hands-on skills that we provide through mobilizations and manipulations are much more advanced than what we were providing in the earlier days of care.
That's Steve Foster, In 1980, Steve earned his bachelor's degree in physical therapy from the UAB School of Health Professions. As you heard, he currently serves as president and CEO of TherapySouth. Steve is passionate about UAB and the community and has his own idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
For me, and I think probably for most graduates, it takes you back to a place of being a student and what that looked like, what that felt like. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I think also of just the progression of the school since I've been there. When I was at UAB, it was kind of a commuter college. Not many people lived on campus. And so the campus life was kind of limited. And to come from that to where it is today, where there's every opportunity at UAB, just as it is at any other state school, to be involved in athletics and all the things that a major college offers, it's very rewarding to see that.
Check out past episodes of UAB Green and Told on Spotify and iTunes, and help other Blazers find it by leaving a written review. You can also listen in at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Finally, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for @UAB Alumni. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.